they stick hundreds of millions of pounds into these new venues, which frustrates the hell out of me, because it's hard to develop Silverstone, or I was at Snetterton last week. Jonathan Palmer's developing that with some of his own money, and you know, they've got hundreds of millions to spend in these other venues around the world, supported by the government or regional government or whatever. But that's what they do. That's where we go to race and just get on with it.
We do have a much easier time of it than, you know, the Formula One commentators and media of yore. For instance, when the Japanese Grand Prix first happened in the late 70s, I think to get there you had to fly via Alaska and have a stop off in Anchorage. Nowadays you can pretty much go from one point to the next, although I'm presuming, Jake, you have a bit of trouble in economy seating.
I do, yeah, and we do. I do travel in economy to some of the races. If people always say to me, which is the best race to go to, and I sort of debate this throughout the course of the season, but over the last couple of years I've fallen in love with the Singapore Grand Prix. I don't know it's whether because we go on air at 10 o'clock at night, so you feel like you're sort of on air at a strange time, and Eddie isn't particularly mad, because that's normally sort of witching out of him when it goes even more wild. Or what it is, but there's something really special about Singapore. They put on a great show, and one of the lovely things about that place is they really care for Formula One to come to town. So the whole place comes to a standstill. They're having brilliant parties, loads of people turn up for the Grand Prix. It looks sharp, it looks great. In HD on the BBC this year, it will look even better. So yeah, we're grateful that we can fly around the world without having to stop off 10 or 11 different times. But yeah, Singapore is stunning.
And we go to some wonderful venues, but I'm looking here at a sea of people who love motorsport, and there will not be 1 ounce of sympathy for us having to get on an aeroplane of any description to go and watch a Formula One and troll up and down the grid talking to a few mates. So I never seek any sympathy. We have a wonderful opportunity to follow Formula One.
I'm sure most people would crawl to a Grand Prix if they had to,
Exactly.
Because, you know, we do. It's a very exciting sport. We get to get a very close view. For you though, when you're broadcasting live, and this is something I've always been sort of had a slightly morbid fascination with, is that do you have a plan in case things go wrong? Because, you know, I've got this overwhelming memory of sitting watching the San Marino Grand Prix 1994 on a 14-inch portable and not really having a clue what was going on. Do you have a crisis plan in case there's an accident, you don't know what's happened to the driver?
We've used it. You might not know we've used it, but we've used it in the past. It was a couple of times. I remember in our first season in Valencia, I sort of did the usual. So live and uninterrupted on the BBC, it's the Valencia Grand Prix with Martin Brundle and Jonathan Ledgard. Nothing happened. And then they went, there's no commentators. And then they sort of cut to the shots of the track and stuff. And David and I were standing there, and I was thinking, don't make me commentate on this, because Martin's job this year as our lead commentator, I still say the toughest job in the world, and I was worried. And David went in to sort of say what his sea mode, and he went, well, there's a boat, and some people, and the sun is shining. And we were petrified. And another time we were in Germany, we were 2 minutes away from going on air, and what we tend to do, we tend to have a plan, so we know that, you know, you guys love seeing inside the garages and you like seeing us getting up close to the cars, so we know that at one point we're going to come in and we're going to crouch here, talk about the Renault, take a look at the diffuser or whatever, and we need portable cameras with, you know, remote packs on the back to do that. And suddenly we lost all our technical abilities 2 minutes before going live in Germany. And so we went to this cabled position where we just simply have to stand in a paddock with the cameras connected into a box and our microphones connected into a box. And so you just go with that sort of stuff. That's the excitement of live TV. Almost every Grand Prix something goes wrong. We'll lose our earpieces, or we'll lose our microphones, or we won't be able to hear each other, or one of the cameras will stop working, or we'll be changing batteries while we're live. And it's our job to look like swans, really, you know, nice and calm on the surface, but paddling like mad underneath to try and keep this show on air. And you're like a juggernaut racing towards a wall. That wall is the start of the Grand Prix, and you hope that you jump out before you hit the wall.
Exactly. I was in that race that you talk about when Senna had the accident. I don't know what was going on either, but I've only thought I was commentating once on a fatality, which is Luciano Berti, Spa, when he went barreling in right into the tyres when he had the connection with Eddie Irvine. And it is a difficult moment. It's something I'm going to rehearse in my new job as the lead commentator for those moments where you have to handle it absolutely right. But coming from the world of being a Grand Prix driver, I was used to teams that everything was just to the minute. Everything was so precise. Then I went into the world of live television, and I've just about got used to it after 14 years. An hour before the race, you'll be, so what are we doing then at the beginning, and who's what, how does it all, and somehow it all comes together. It's a mystery, actually, isn't it? Because it's calamity. Live television is total calamity, and then they go, cue, and that's it, you're off. And that's why it's so good. You can't afford, really, to get it completely wrong. You can't get halfway through something and go like, no, I don't like that, let's start again. Susan Boyle did that, didn't she, in America recently? But, you know, you have to get it right first time.
I remember when Felipe Massa was hit by the spring when we were in Humphery, not the season, but the season before. And on race day, we wanted to explain the story. And what we wanted to do was try and get as close to a spring as possible. To say people, oh, I got hit by a spring, you know, they might imagine this little thing that you have at home. And we were standing, I'm not joking, there was the three of us here, so myself, David and Eddie. And they said, okay, going on air in 3, 2, and then dum, 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 dum. And then I stood there, did my opening link, hello, well, come on, I'm here with David Coulthard and Eddie Jordan. Oh my God, where's Eddie? Well, David Coulthard at the moment. Started talking to David, and then Eddie came herring along the pit lane holding a spring. I nicked this from a GP2 team. I think it's about right. He said, and basically he'd gone to a GP2 team down the paddock and tried to get a replica part of this spring from them to try and explain the story. And it was great, and we did, and we had this spring, and a lot of people emailed in and tweeted us to say, you know, I was amazed by how big that spring was. But it was Eddie sort of disappearing out at the last minute that was slightly scary, but, you know, it makes good television.
They do say you should never work with children or animals, don't they?
Yeah, the worrying thing about that is it was a torsion belt that hit him on the head, not a spring. But anyway, let's not wreck this with detail.
Okay, just a quick one for Jake before we throw to the crowd. When you're in the paddock doing a broadcasting thing, do you ever get infuriated with those ridiculous goobers who prance around behind you, getting on their phone?
Yeah, but then I throw to the VT and just turn around and go, no, I don't. And, you know, they're there to sort of enjoy the racing and have some fun. Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit frustrating when they're really close behind you waving to their parents, but I think it's all part of the Formula One fun. The thing is, you get more annoyed than I do, because I'm looking in this direction, you're looking in that direction, so you see them, you see, we don't spot them. I'm sorry about that.
One of those people is actually Ian Burrows, who's the commercial director of F1 Racing, who's a regular offender. Okay, well, it's time to throw the questions to the audience. Should we do the same rubric we did yesterday? It was quite fair. I close my eyes, I point, you can turn me the other way and tell me when to stop. And we're going to pick 2 people out of the crowd to ask questions. Each of those people I will invite to hang around afterwards and speak to my glamorous assistant and give your details, and you will be in receipt of a pair of tickets each for the 2011 British Grand Prix. So without further ado,
Stop!
We got someone, yeah, okay, alright then. You, sir, there's going to be a dust-up after this at some point. Please don't do what the woman did yesterday and ask either of them to wear a silly pair of shades for an art project.
Hello. Questions to Martin, really. Do you think with the curse system coming back and the new rear wing, we're going to see a lot more overtaking?
Well, they tell me yes. I asked Adrian Newey that question here on Friday, and because I said, look, the front wing, the overtaking work group came up with a front wing, and that didn't do anything for overtaking. Will this? He said, yes, it will. But we're all worried it'll be artificial, that somebody can press a button and overtake Lewis Hamilton without any skill whatsoever because he's got more straight line speed. So the way that they define the parameters, how many straights there are on a circuit, when you can use it down the straight, and they need to get that absolutely right, because with KERS and the adjustable rear wing, that'd be the equivalent if you press them both at the same time and the drivers are moaning got too much to do inside the cockpit at the moment. That's like having another 160 horsepower with no extra weight. So that's the same power as a decent family hatchback, just to push you along the straight. So that, the closing speeds on the guy you're overtaking will be quite high. We saw what happened in Valencia on that with Mark Webber and Heikki Kovalainen. So there are some concerns about it, and an overtake should be something to savour. We all remember Mansell going around Piquet at Stowe at Silverstone. We remember Mansell and Senna sparking away, almost touching tyres down the Barcelona straight. Berger being overtaken at Perotada around the outside of the long corner there in Mexico City, and other magical moments. It can't be too easy. Jake came up with a very good point the other day of, You know, we had in Abu Dhabi one of the best drivers in the world, Fernando Alonso, one of the fastest cars, couldn't overtake a rookie in the Renault, which is a decent car, despite all of his skill and experience. So we need to do something, but we hope that it's not artificial.
Just you know, rear wing back, they're not really going to know, are they? If it's going to work until our first race, aren't they?
No, but it will. They've got 4 tests. It will definitely work because, you know, they know if you open the slot gap, the wing's not going to fold down. It's actually the front of it's going to come up by 40 millimeters. The slot gap opens, so the rear wing doesn't work as well, and therefore it'll go faster in a straight line. One of these things doing a couple of 100 miles an hour, the drag is enormous. To go 5 miles an hour faster, you probably need another 60 or 70 horsepower, possibly even more at that speed. So by dumping the drag, they will go faster. You need to make sure you're in a straight line though, and that's why they won't allow it to work on the first 2 laps of the Grand Prix when you're in close company. Where I'm going to laugh in the commentary is if somebody, a leader, passes a back marker who falls into the 1 second zone behind him, presses his button and repasses him again because he's faster in a straight line. Probably won't happen, but I will laugh if it does.
It'll be a little bit like Ayrton Senna versus Eddie Irvine at the Japanese Grand Prix that time. There will be blood. Okay, stick around, sir. And one of my colleagues over there will be around to take your details later. Okay, should we do that again? I'll begin this way.
Stop.
The lady here. I like it when you make it easy for you to reach.
Good question. Yeah, we could both answer that. Because Jake drives a bit as well, you know. Yeah, you saw him in the Lotus. But then I tried to be the anchorman once at the Japanese Grand Prix 2008 when Steve Ryder didn't turn up to do football, and I couldn't do that. So we stick to our own jobs. What car would I always regret that I wasn't a Ferrari driver at some point. I have tested for Ferrari for a magazine. In fact, this very magazine, as it happens.
F1 Racing, yeah.
Yes, and there was something magical about driving out of the pits with that scarlet red bodywork around you. It's only carbon fibre and the same, pretty much the same bits, same tyres, but there's still something magical about being a Ferrari driver. So that's the car I absolutely would want to drive this year, but not necessarily alongside Fernando Alonso. He's a bit too quick.
I would like to drive. I'd like to drive a Lotus just because I'm a patriotic Norfolk boy, and I like it in green and yellow, the colours of Norwich City. That would make me happy. It was quite an emotional moment when, thanks, good lad. Good last minute equaliser yesterday, eh? When the Lotus was the first car on track in Bahrain last year. It was a special moment, I think, for Martin as well, being a Norfolk boy and having close links with Lotus as well. So yeah, I'd have that, and I'd beat him. If you believe that, you'll believe anything.
Okay, well, we've got time for one more question because Jake, you've got to sign some autographs. Martin, you've got lunch to you. There's a very large collection of people over there waiting for your autograph. There's also a lady who wants to ask a question. I'll let you ask a question, madam, but I'm afraid the 2 tickets have been given away already. But you know, I salute your indefatigability in waving. So yeah, ask away.
Right. To what extent do you both think Formula 1 will sport in the 21st century?
I can't hear that of it.
So the question was, to what extent do you think Formula 1 is a sport in the 21st century? Do you want to elucidate a little bit, madam? Because that's like an essay question.
Yeah, Jake says he has I think I'd take about an hour to answer that personally, but Jake says he has a good answer.
Yeah, I just think that we've tried, and we will try even harder to explain to him what goes on inside these cars. And Martin has done it, and he will be able to vouch for the fact that you need to be super fit to drive one of these things. You know, they're strapped in so tight that they can't take a full breath of air. It gets under 60 degrees in the cockpit. They lose kilos of fluid during the race. When you just lifting your foot off the accelerator is 1 G of deceleration, which is the same as an emergency stop if you or I had a cat run out in front of us. They keep that up for 2 hours. And I remember in Hungary, David saying, you know, that sort of permanent movement on your core, that permanent almost sit-up position that they're doing for 2 hours in a car. DC said he pulled over in Hungary because he just physically couldn't handle it. The car was fine and he was okay, but physically his body sort of gave up on it. And it's very easy to see a bit of carbon fibre and a helmet and a corner you know, let's take turn 8 in Turkey and see they all look like they're on rails, you know, because the downforce is so much, and round they go, and you watch that at home, going, oh, that's a good car. You've no idea the physicality and the brutality inside the cockpit, and frankly, neither have I. And I'd love us to find a way of being able to explain to everybody just what is going on in there. But you've done it, it's a sport, isn't it?
One thing I can guarantee to you, that on a Sunday afternoon every 2 weeks roughly, and 20 times this year, it's absolutely a sport. Yeah, and it's a manic. If you've seen Formula Ones live, they're much noisier and faster than they look on the TV, I have to say, and it's wheel-to-wheel action, and the commitment is immense.
Well, before we say goodbye, there's some other thing that I'd really like to know is, how are you expecting to tackle the thorny issue of the Lotus Renault and the Lotus, because that's a Lotus Renault as well, and this is going to be a Lotus Renault. How are you going to be able to differentiate between those at the speed, at the speed?
I will mainly be leaving that to Martin.
And I will probably be calling it the Black Lotus and the Green Lotus, because that's about the only way. Black's a stupid colour to have on the racetrack, actually, because it's a showroom colour. I know it's from a car dealer, but that evocative colour scheme they have is great in photographs, but they don't stand out particularly well on a racetrack or on television. But I'm pleased to see those colours back in many respects. I'm hoping they'll sort it out before they get to the first race, because I think I've read up and I've spoken to the people, and I'm still confused why they can't sort it out, and why one team is promoting the brand of another, and I know it's involved Malaysia. Things have changed since Lotus started last year. I admire Tony Fernandez, Mike Gaspar, their enthusiasm. I'm delighted to see them on the grid, but we can't really have two Lotus cars. But Lotus are effectively the sponsor of the Renault, just as Vodafone are the sponsor of McLaren, actually. So that's a Lotus with a Renault engine. This is a Renault with a Lotus sponsor, just to make it even more messy. So I'll worry about it when I have to talk about it.
Well, we'll get there in the end. I very much look forward to listening to you and watching you on the telly, as does everyone else here. Unfortunately, now we're running out of time. Martin, you've got lunch. Jake, you've got a lot of people to sign autographs for. So it's been a pleasure having you both. You can come back. I think they've been great, haven't they?
Yeah. Good to see everybody. Have a great show and enjoy your Formula One.
Martin Brundle and Jake Humphery there, ladies and gentlemen.